Wanted the best, and you got the best. The hottest band in the world. Good. No. Sorry, I probably butchered that. I don't know what the thing is. That's the thing, right? That's the thing that they always say. Hello and welcome to tonight's show. I am stoked for this show, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a bunch of guys getting together that have never done anything like this before. We're all here to talk about Kiss. Really cool stuff. This is what has me so stoked about the internet, because it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you have an internet connection, you can get together with a bunch of people and have a round table discussion. We got such a round table discussion for you guys. You don't even understand. We're about to dive into all things Kiss. And, you know, I think, although I'm sure one of my panelists would argue back and forth with me, that I would say that I'm the least qualified here, the least qualified of all, which is refreshing and wonderful. So, yeah, I'm just really excited. What spurred this on? Well, Kiss did their final show, and I told, we analyzed the final. We talked a little bit about the final show. I had never been to a Kiss show. I tried to go to the last Kiss show. I tried to take my 8-year-old son. We weren't able to get tickets. Weren't able to go. I was like, what a great first show for my son, the last Kiss concert. I mean, that would be just a lark, just to have some nosebleeds and just watch the fireworks and call it a day. Whatever. And then I had this incredible realization, and I'm going to get into it. I want to ask my panelists what they think, what they think about it, and we'll see if we can get to the bottom of some stuff. So I guess let me bring out the panelists out of the digital green room. We'll go around, returning from the wooded forests of evil Ohio in the Midwest is none other than Larry the Wolf. Oh, there he is. Look at that guy. Look at him. He's back, baby. He's back. And someone else who I have not been on his show. He doesn't have a show, but he's a panelist. He's on a bunch of stuff. In fact, he was nominated. He was rated. He was the number 1 panelist on this other YouTube channel, I believe. I saw that somewhere. Which is spectacular. He is well-versed. He is well-versed in a variety of different bands, and takes music discussion just as seriously as I do, just as seriously as I'm sure Larry the Wolf does. To bring out, and he also runs the Hudson Horror Fest, or did run the Hudson Horror Fest. I don't know what the current state of things are, but let me bring out Chris. Chris is here with us. Hey, Chris, how are you, man?
Good, man. Thanks so much.
Correct me on my intro. What did I get wrong?
No, you got it. Yeah, I'm a panelist on the Sea of Tranquility channel on YouTube. Was recently voted their #1 favorite panelist for 2023, which is a huge honor. I'm on the Hudson Valley Squares show and the Monsters Den show, where we discuss horror movies. And we just started a new show, myself and Pete Pardo, the creator of Sea of Tranquility, which is called The Sabbath Stones. Certainly inspired by you with your Misfits show. So we just talk Black Sabbath.
Love it. Link us. Send me a link so we can put it in the comments, because everybody's got to check it out. Our last panelist.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, no. Sorry. Go ahead.
Previously.
Oh no, he froze.
For Circus Magazine. Metal Edge magazine, metal. Oh
no, Chris, we're losing you, buddy. Your reception and your hey now.
You got
there
me?
He is. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Now we got you. Go ahead.
I used to write for lots of rock and metal magazines pre-COVID.
Right. Yes. You did, and you did some Danzig articles as well.
Yep. Oh man, yeah. I've interviewed Glenn Danzig, I think 3 or 4 times.
Incredible. A feat that I have never accomplished and probably never will.
Coming.
So
it's coming.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. Okay, our last panelist, someone I've never met before. Chris said to me, he's like, "Hey, listen, I know this guy. He's a Kiss fan, loves Kiss. Would be perfect for this panel. Got to bring him on." And I hope I don't butcher his name. I'm going to try my best. He's going to correct me if I get his name wrong. Now, he has a show on Sirius, okay? Wrestling show. Chris, what's the name of the wrestling show?
Busted Open Radio. The #1 sports show on Sirius XM.
That #1. And Larry the Wolf knows this show. Larry the Wolf is a fan of the show. He's well acquainted with it. I'd like to bring out, very happy to have on the channel for the first time, Dave Lagreca. God, did I mess that up? Oh no!
No, I'm just joking. I'm here. But yes, you did not, Dave Lagreca. You didn't butcher my name at all. Good job. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Welcome to the show, Dave. So you are all right. Let's go around now that Dave's here, now that Chris is here, now that Larry's here. Let's go around before just to get started. And I'm going to try and keep this. We're gonna have a little brevity, just so we don't, because this is the type of thing we can get really mired down in the weeds. Very quickly, I want everybody to go around and qualify their Kissdom, their Kiss fandom, and then we will dive into the meat of the show. So we'll start with Larry and go down to Chris and go around to Dave. We'll do a clockwise fashion. Go ahead.
Jeff, it's great to be with you. Dave, Chris as well. It's great to meet you guys. I'm very honored to be here on this Kiss panel. So I was one of those kids of the 70s who gave all my money to either Marvel Comics, Famous Monsters Magazine, Aurora Monster Models, and then Kiss, with a little Joe Namath and John Riggins Jets memorabilia mixed in. But for most part, I spent my money on Kiss posters and Kiss records after I heard Kiss Alive. And then when I saw the Ken Kelly painting because I knew Marvel Comics well, and Ken Kelly had been doing Creepy and Eerie, along with, previously been Frazetta, Richard Corbin, Boris Vallejo, and then Ken Kelly. And I saw the Kiss Destroyer album cover, and I couldn't believe they would have outfits like that, particularly Gene Simmons. So a big influence on me. And I first saw Kiss on the Spirit of 76 tour. And I just sent you some pictures. There's one of them.
Oof.
Seeing Gene Simmons in the Castle Turret on the Spirit of 76 tour remains the greatest. Dave, I'm going to use a pro wrestling term. Remains the greatest high spot I've ever seen at any concert ever.
Now, are these pictures that you took, Larry?
No, sir. These are just of that era. They were all, I saw them on September 3rd, 76 at the Richfield Coliseum. That was the first show of 18 or 19 that I've been to over the years.
Wow.
Big influence on me,
You are qualified, sir. You are qualified when it comes to Kiss. Chris, what about you?
I would definitely consider myself the least qualified on the panel. I first came across Kiss, I want to say like 77, reading my sister's copy of 17 magazine, had an article about Gene Simmons vomiting blood, and I thought that was gross. And I was just a casual fan for quite a few years. My sister had Alive 2, the double 8-track. I remember watching the night it aired, Kiss Meets the Phantom. I remember Saturday morning on Kids Are People 2, watching when they did the introduction of Eric Carr. But, I was not obsessed with music until I got into Black Sabbath in like 83. And then within a year or so, for me, that's when I started getting into all the other bands and rediscovering Kiss, of course, who now no longer had makeup. And that's when, I started collecting some Kiss stuff from the past and being a fan of the non-makeup era and, of course, the makeup era. But I'm certainly... I don't think as qualified as anybody on here. I've only seen Kiss, I think, 10 times. And it's been years. But listen, I've seen Slayer 58 times. So for me, that's a good number. To me, Kiss, I'm like, I've seen bands I hate probably 10 times. So, but yeah, I was able to see the final show, and I was very, and Dave, Jeff, I wish I knew that you were trying to get tickets, because I had talked to Dave. I got tickets last minute on
Get out of here.
Last show. I think it was section 106 at the Garden. I bought the tickets at like 4 p.m. The show time was 7:30, but I paid $180 flat.
Wow. Okay, for 2 tickets, you know what? Because here's the thing. I was like, I was like, man, these tickets are going to be pricey. And so I'm like weighing out. I'm like, okay, my 8-year-old son never seen a live show in his life. What a great first show, Kiss. Like that's like the move, right? But at the same time, I'm like, I know like 10 Kiss songs that I really care about. I'm not really, I don't know, whatever. Like, I don't really want to, drop coin on these tickets. And it's the last show at the Garden. It's not going to go down. So it's like, well, how much am I going to really spend here? And I saw that each ticket where I was looking on stuff, I was like hovering around 180 a piece. And I was like, you know what? And then I saw that Guar is coming to town in March. And I thought, maybe that's going to be my son's show.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper, but it's a lot more messy too. But
for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. So both of you guys were at the last Kiss show. It's amazing. Let's quickly get Dave. Dave, please check in and qualify, and then we'll open it up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Kiss is one of my 2 all-time favorite bands. I'm a big Kiss and Alice Cooper fan, and I discovered Kiss, and it was impossible not to discover Kiss going to grade school in the 70s. So everybody in my class was a Kiss fan. And the first time I experienced Kiss was the HBO special in 1978, which was a show from the Love Gun tour in Japan. And a great show. And I fell in love with Kiss then. The next day, I dragged my mom to Sears at the Willowbrook Mall in Wayne and bought Kiss Alive 2. And this is the actual album that I bought on that day in 1978. And ever since then, as I said, one of my all-time favorite bands, them, Kiss and Alice Cooper. So I love Kiss. I've seen them about a dozen times now. I've seen Cooper probably, like Chris was saying, more than 40 times. Wow. But yeah, Kiss is kind of like the soundtrack of my life. It seems like from the day one that I discovered music, Kiss has been in my life. So it's crazy. I don't know a world without Kiss. I'm kind of just having withdrawals now about not having Kiss, unless they call for another reunion tour, farewell tour. But I was at the first farewell tour back in 2000. I went to both nights at the Brendan Byrne Arena, the Meadowlands in New Jersey. And then, as Chris said, I was at the final show December 2nd at Madison Square Garden. So
Wow. So by the way, I've never seen Kiss live. And so, you're like, I'm not that big of a fan. Chris is like, I'm not that big of a fan. I've only seen them 10 times. 10 times. I mean, that's a lot. I think that's a lot. But
you missed out, Jeff. I tell you, whether you love the music or not, and I think Larry and Chris will tell you, they put on one hell of a show.
Oh, absolutely.
And even though you probably heard, Jeff, a lot of negativity about the last show at the Garden, and justifiably so, it was still an amazing show, and it was a great time.
Well, actually, I did not hear a lot about the negativity, but here, let me say, I just want to qualify myself real quick, and then I'm going to open up with the hot take, and then we'll go around and discuss that. So for me, my exposure to Kiss is kind of embarrassing. My exposure to Kiss is Detroit Rock City, the movie in the 90s. And it's one of my all-time favorite films.
Love that. Thank you, Jeff. I love that movie, and it gets nothing but hate. I actually love that movie.
It is, when I was younger and I was like in my, when I was a teenager who was like into the Misfits and stuff, I was like, roll my eyes and be like, kind of wish this movie was about the Ramones. But then I kind of very quickly dipped back out of that. I was like, we got Rock and Roll High School already. You know what I mean? I dipped back out of that. I was like, no. This is not about, this is that, like, Kiss is the band for this movie, this time capsule of 1978. It is what it is. And like I said, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's a road movie. It's a coming of age movie. It's a Odyssey. The final 5 minutes are some of the best final 5 minutes of any movie. It's just a fantastic film. So that turned me on to songs like Love Gun, which is in the opening, and whatever was on the soundtrack, and that kind of like opened me up a little bit to Kiss. And then I've always just kind of casually, it's always been in the background, but never it never from like a musical standpoint, more along the lines of a pop culture standpoint. Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, they're taking they're doing the farewell show. Now they got new guys. Now there's controversy because they're wearing the makeup of the old guys. This is the heresy. Side note, I had met Ace Frehley, who I knew his daughter and met Ace Frehley as a guy named Paul in back in the aughts, because he lived in Chappaqua. He lived just north of me, right? He used to come down to Sam Ash all the time. And he just was a guy named Paul. He had a beard, and I was just like, oh, what's up? I was hanging out with him, I was sitting next to him and whatnot. And then I go home and I'm watching VH1 when Kiss ruled the world. And there is that guy talking. Why is he on there? And then I look at the lower third plate, Ace Frehley. That's Ace fucking Frehley. I was going, oh my God, that's Ace Frehley. But he's just very, very casual. So side note, I always thought that was just kind of an amusing story. You find out it's Ace Frehley because you watch.
Jeff, I understand what you've gone through with this band, because with probably the exception of 96 when they got back together and had the reunion tour, I think every other time in my life as a Kiss fan, they were never the cool band. Like there was always the music geeks like yourself that think you're better than everybody else with your Sam Goody mentality. Now, I'm sorry, I don't mean disrespect.
No, you're right. It's good.
Like they were always, Kiss was always a band that was looked down upon.
Right. No, you're so right. You're so right.
They were never the cool band. They were never like the musical geniuses.
No, they were cool in the 70s, but then they became a parody of their stuff. Go ahead. Larry wants to say something.
I don't want to cut off Dave's point, because Dave, I'm marking down notes about each one of you guys, what things you said. I had a very different experience in school. I'm originally from New York, but I moved out to Ohio. I got stranded out here in 1970. So I went through the Kiss thing, and I will tell you, most of the kids in my school were, it was a definite, one faction was Led Zeppelin, Rush, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Yes, I can't listen to Yes. That to me is just shit. I can't listen to that stuff. It didn't speak to me. My musical palette was not that sophisticated. I had listened to Slade and stuff like that, and Mott the Hoople, and David Bowie and Alice Cooper with the $1 Billion Babies. That other stuff was too, again, maybe my my musical palette was just not sophisticated enough to tolerate that stuff. And it was always Elvis Presley for me. So when I heard Kiss, it sounded like real rock and roll. But I will tell you, most of the kids, you go into the library class and you write, you do a really nice Kiss logo. You draw on something to face the thing, and some jerk kid comes along and puts UCKS at the end of your really nice Kiss thing. I mean, that was left and right. There were kids getting in fights over this to be a Kiss fan, And the first time I saw them, I will tell you this, I must have been 10 years younger than the average age, because I had just turned. I begged the guy around the corner to drive us there. And a band called Artful Dodger was opening. Very good band. I must have been 10 years younger than everybody else in the place. It was older guys and girls. It was weed everywhere. It was a 70s rock concert. Fast forward, by the time I saw them in 78 on the Live 2 tour, on the Blizzard of 78 show. I saw them 4 times on the Dynasty tour. Suddenly, it's Ice Capades. I'm the oldest kid. I'm 17. I'm the oldest kid, other than it's everybody with their parents. And I've got little kids next to me and all around me. It stopped being dangerous for me right around that time. But I had a different experience, Dave, in school. It was very much, and of course, the kids who were Rush fans and Led Zeppelin fans, they weren't going to get in any kind of a fight over Kiss, but they like to heckle you and talk shit.
So it was so it's sort of at some point it changes. Now this all dovetails into my first point, actually, and this is great. So here's my hot take. Okay, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I'm watching footage of the last show because I'm like, I gotta just see. I want to just see, even for someone who's not into Kiss in that kind of way musically, I still gotta just take in. This is the final Kiss show. This is a historical moment. I even recognize how historical this is. 50 years this band has been doing this thing, whether, no matter what you feel about the band. And I got to tell you, suddenly it hit me like a sack of bricks that I had been going. It only took the final watching video of the final show for me to fully understand the band. It was like like the Grinch when his heart grows 3 sizes that day or whatever, like inexplicably, I guffawed. I was watching the sequence, which I guess is old hat by now. This is part of the show where Paul hops on the line. And as I'm watching this happen, I just got this ginormous smile on my face. And I'm looking at him going over the crowd. And then I suddenly realized, all the Eddie Trunks and all the people out there, like, they're lip syncing and it's a fake show and blah, blah. And then I suddenly realized, I was like, nobody gives a shit. That's not what this is about. And now I'm about to dovetail it. Dave is going to appreciate this, I think. Fucking Kiss is fucking the wrestling of the music world.
It's a lot like wrestling where, if you're part of the community, I'll say this, if you're a wrestling fan, no explanation is necessary. If you're not a wrestling fan, no explanation will do. You either get it or you don't get it. And I think that's the same thing with Kiss. Like, people who aren't Kiss fans are going to say those things like, oh, they're lip syncing and, they're wearing the makeup. It's comical. It's all, it's all marketing, because you don't understand it. But if you get it and you're in it and you understand it, that's what you love about it. It's like you just said, Paul Stanley's lip syncing. Who cares? The guy's on a zip line going across an arena full of 25,000 people. Who cares if he's lip syncing or not? And by the way, at least for the last show, I don't think he was lip syncing, because his voice was so bad. There's no way he was lip syncing. Yeah, but like, who cares? It's fun. Like, you tell me another 70-year-old man that's wearing high platform shoes, that's got muscles like Paul Stanley does, Eldon and Larry, and then is on a zip line like he is. I mean, come on. I'm 52. I can barely walk up a flight of stairs. Who cares if he's getting some backing vocals that are helping him? It's a party. And, it's like a non-wrestling fan saying, well, that shit's fake. Well, we all know it's predetermined.
But it's not fake.
It. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's not. It's you know what it is. You know what it is, and it's the same thing with Kiss. And I want to hear Chris. I'll give the floor to spotlight to Chris for a second, because I feel like just so he has a moment to speak.
I think he's still frozen.
No, he's there.
I've heard from him.
I'm just taking it in there. Like I said, I'm the lesser Kiss guy on here.
Listen, you want to know something? In all honesty, but like, it's still a performance. And that's what I realized. Kiss is a rock band for sure. I'm not saying they're not. Clearly they're musicians, and obviously they've sold millions of records. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Although that's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is not a great measure these days, whatever, this, that, and the other. But the point is that I was wrong. All of my reasons, all of my logics were so wrong. I was like, dude, you go there to just have a good fucking time and enjoy the fucking fireworks and the this and the that. And that's when I realized, that's when I finally understood Kiss. Kiss is very much like the wrestling for the wrestling world. So Chris, why don't you say something? I see Larry's jotting things down so he doesn't forget. So yeah, Chris, you go.
I would absolutely agree with that assessment. I mean, Kiss have a lot of great songs, and I think what propelled them to stardom, was the makeup and the stage show. But I think they wouldn't have gone anywhere if they didn't have any great songs and great music. But I know for me, being a minor Kiss fan, I was like, I had not seen any Kiss shows on this farewell tour. So I had heard all the stories about it, and I was like, yeah, I got to see this show, for the last time. And it really was just an unbelievable show. I mean, I've probably seen like 2,000 concerts in the States, in Europe. And I said to Dave after the show, I think it was the biggest arena stage show I have ever seen. The only concert I think I've ever seen with a bigger stage performance was another show that Dave and I saw the previous year, which was Rammstein. but that's a stadium show. So obviously it is bigger. But it was just an unbelievable show. I mean, every song, things were blowing up, things were moving. There's lasers.
I saw the cranes at the very end. They get on, and Gene, he can barely move in all that fucking gear anymore. But he nudges it. He goes over. He puts the thing around him, and he's just he's not doing the thing. This is what I miss, the what he used to do in the 70s and what. I doesn't do that much anymore. But he's just going around, and I'm going, that's what Jeff, you idiot. That's what it is. Just enjoy it. Larry, please chime in with some comments.
I love hearing these stories because it's funny because everybody's entry point of Kiss, because they've been around for, again, 50 years, whatever. Everybody's entry point is different for a year, but every one of those entry points is cool. You have a different perception depending on where you started and where you're like. I know, Chris, you mentioned earlier. Well, it's funny. We're talking about it being a show. For years, they got accused by everybody who liked real musicians about, they're just a show. They're just a show. Now, suddenly they want them to be the greatest musicians on the planet. I thought for 50 years you've been saying it's just a show. Okay, well, maybe they had it right. Because by having all the makeup on there, you don't really see how old they look. Paul, yes, his voice has been challenged for a number of years now. But at the same time, he looks phenomenal. He looks in terrific shape. I will tell you, I think I probably saw them, of everybody here, I think I probably saw them the earliest. And why that's 76. And one of those pictures I did send to you, Jeff, which shows that's Madison Square Garden on the Rock and Roll Over Tour, 77, which was essentially the same as the Destroyer tour, but with better lighting. That's one of the sins of that, is the missed opportunities. As great as Bill O'Coin was as promoting, was missing recording the Rock and Roll Over Tour on film, just like Colonel Parker mixed the 4 shows by Elvis Presley at Madison Square Garden in 3 days in June of 72. But when I first saw them, and I would say even in 78 when I saw them, but especially in 76, they were the show and everything was a backdrop around them. It was staging. Simmons put out so much energy. It was ridiculous. He had a patented move. I can still, in my mind's eye, I can see the castle turret high spot with him spitting the blood. I can see the end of the show with everything, just all this shit blowing up. And I mean, explosive flames. It wasn't safe. They've changed pyrotechnics to the point where it's sophisticated. No one's getting hurt. At that time, you felt heat off the stage. It was ridiculous. It was concussive. Other than maybe Motorhead, once I saw at the Variety Theater a show in 84, that Kiss in 76 was brutally loud. But the point was, everything was a backdrop for their energy, which was over the top. Every tour after that, for me, they started to rely more and more on the staging and less themselves. Gene, God bless him, but he started to do more just stomping around and aping. And he had a patented move, that 76, 77 tour, and probably, Dave, on that HBO special from Budokan, because that was the Destroyers tour on the Love Gun stage. And if you look at the Paul Lynde thing, he comes out, he runs out, he had a move. He'd run down the stairs, run to the front of the stage, beginning of Detroit Rock City. He'd jump up with the knees up to here, land in that crouch, bounce up and down twice, run backwards, run forward, smash the head of the thing down. He did every time. It was fucking awesome. It was awesome.
And Larry, you're so right. He stopped doing that. I think the first tour where he didn't do that was the Dynasty tour in 79, because the costume was so big with the cape. Yeah. He couldn't do that anymore. It's a great point by you, Larry. Larry, by the way, you're jacked. But you're so right. It was more about the stage and the costumes than it was about the energy of the band. That's a great point, Larry.
Oh, thank you. I saw a band at that era who was their bandmates on Casablanca, a band called Angel. I don't know if everybody remembers. Oh, yeah. Cool band. I saw them. That stage for Dynasty should have been a stage for Angel. It was not a Kiss stage. I mean, it had a cool beginning entry, but after seeing them with this shit, the Destroyer of Rock and Roll Overstaging had this thing called the God of Thunder Machine. It was Ken Strickfaden-esque. If you're horror movie fans, Ken Strickfaden, who did all the electrical crackling electrodes and stuff in those 30s and 40s Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, whatever movies. They had one of those, and they got rid of it on the Rock and Roll Over tour because it was failed so often. There's a clip on YouTube from Side Stage. The only known footage of it was the show I was at on September 3rd of 76. You can just barely see it. They had lightning bolts. They had it was ridiculous. It really was. And Dynasty felt very Vegas-y to me, even though I didn't understand. That's what it seemed like. Paul was over the top. Paul could move then. But Dave, you're right. I think Gene's big flow with the capes and the colorful stuff. It was ice capades. You know, it was still cool, but I saw him 4 times on that show. It wasn't the dangerous band I had seen 2 years and 3 years earlier.
But
they got dangerous again on the Creatures of the Night tour.
But tell us a little bit about that too. Contrast that with the Creatures of the Night.
I don't want to occupy. I went on a long riff there.
We'll come back to Creatures of the Night.
Yeah, I just want to story, Larry, because me being a lesser Kiss fan, this may be sacrilegious to some. But my favorite Kiss record is Creatures of the Night. And if I could go back in time and see any Kiss tour, it might be sacrilegious to some, but it would be the Creatures tour. And if I'm not mistaken, they had the Plasmatics open, who was on tour with Coup d'Etat, my favorite Plasmatics record. I'm like, oh, man, I would love to see that show.
Wow. I saw that tour. I saw them twice on that tour, Chris. And I will tell you, that was the heavy metal Plasmatics. The Plasmatics had a big influence on me because I saw them in 80 or 81 in Detroit. The hardcore Plasmatics blowing up the car on stage with Stu Deutsch. John Beauvoir was the one tour he played with them on bass. Richie Stotts, West Beach. Them as a hardcore band, they were dynamite. Wow. They were good as a metal band with that Kiss show, but that Creatures of the Night tour, they decided they wanted to get. I think they had an epiphany and said, "Okay, our audience that we tried to go after." Like you said, your sister looking at the 17 magazine.
Right.
I bought all that stuff. I was a completist. I bought all that stuff. But it felt funny going up to the checkout and I'm buying a 16 magazine for a cool Kiss picture rather than buying, Cream or Circus or Hit Parade or is okay. You go up there with a Teen Beat with Gene Simmons on the front. That didn't feel right.
Well, Larry, I got a question for you. By the way, Chris, my favorite Kiss studio album is Creatures of the Night. So wow. I'm in total agreement with you.
Great record.
And I was too young at that time to go see Kiss live. And this is obviously pre-internet. So when I bought Creatures of the Night, I loved it. And I didn't know that album and that tour was so unsuccessful until a year later. I bought a Circus magazine where there was an interview with Paul Stanley in it where he talked about how bad that album sold and how bad that tour sold. Because up until then, I thought that was like the greatest album of all time. So Larry, the 2 shows that you went to, was it bleak? Was it half empty like everybody said it was?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the first one I saw was it was, in fact, Chris, I'll give you my quick thing. We played with I saw the Misfits in Dearborn, January. It was the 7th, I think. Met them because they were going to play a show with us on a Sunday night in Toledo. They go off to, it was the same day as they do their famous "Why Be Something You're Not" taping. I was supposed to go up there that day.
Yeah,
I didn't get up there. I went to the show that night. I met them and said, "Hey, we're going to play together on Sunday night." That's great. They were heading to play Chicago. My drummer and we said, well, we're going to see Kiss tomorrow night at Toledo Sports Arena. They're probably the wheels will fall off. I really like this new record. It feels like they're after the, and I like the Oath on the Elder. I think is a great song. Yeah. But after Unmasked, I couldn't have. But I heard Creatures of the Night, and I agree with you guys. I thought this is a great. They got it. They're back. We went on that Saturday night, and then we came back, and the Misfits came back. We played together on Sunday night, Misfits, Manimals, Necros. And I remember Doyle saying, I wish I could have stayed back and gone to the Kiss show with you guys last night. When they came on, I knew about Eric Carr. as the Fox, but it was still kind of a mystery whether or not Ace Frehley was going to be on stage or not, because you just didn't have, you get the stuff in the newspaper, like you mentioned earlier, Dave, about Circus Magazine, but you didn't get the information right away. So we really didn't know, and it was about half full. And then I saw them a month later at Richfield again, and that was with the Plasmatics opening. And that first show, it was okay, but you could tell there was something it was a little off. But the second show, I thought they were killer. And Gene was back to move. He was Gene again. He was, he looked like he was angry. He was ferocious. Paul, they were great. And I have to say, by that point, the last few times I saw them with Ace, I saw 4 Dynasty shows, including the very last one of the original 4 in Toledo. That was until '96 reunion. I saw them at the Pontiac Silverdome. Cheap Trick beat them up that night. I have to admit, they were the better band that day. And I saw them 2 nights at Richfield, which was the Land of Hype and Glory with Edwin Newman show that had been on. I have to tell you, Ace and Peter looked like they were dialing it in. They didn't look like they cared.
And that was the same. That was probably the same effort they gave on the farewell tour in 2000. Because in '96, I thought they were tremendous. The Psycho Circus tour it was still good, but it was shaky. But by the farewell tour, it felt like, especially Peter Criss was just mailing it in.
100%. Yes, I agree.
I just want to interject here real quick.
Sorry, Jeff.
No, oh my God, no. This is literally. I just want to say very quickly. I could not have hoped for a better show than this. This exceeds all expectations that I had for any kind of panel. So I really want to thank all of you. I mean, just extraordinary. I'm so excited, as you all are, to interject and say something as well. And I just wanted to chime in. What sparked this panel in the first place was I was watching old footage of Kiss, and the first time I really was like, wow, like Kiss is kind of cool, was seeing Black Diamond in '75 at that. What's the name of the performance that I'm thinking of? I think it's a very famous one.
Well, they actually had a theater release of that. I think that's at Cobo Hall in '75. No.
It was a TV thing. I think it was a TV thing. I could be wrong. Listen.
Midnight Special. They did a recorded thing in '74. Gene, if you look at that, the very beginning when they're playing Deuce, Gene turns his ankle and is that close to going down. It's hilarious.
Damn. All right, I'll go back and I'll check that out. But watching Black Diamond, I'll tell you the moment where I started to really turn for me with Kiss, and where I really started to respect them in a whole different way, was Black Diamond. I've never heard the song before. I'm watching it on YouTube. And the moment when I saw, there's this moment where Gene pushes the microphone out of the way at the end, and he starts doing this thing with his bass, and so does Paul. And then Ace gets down. And then that was another moment where everything clicked for me. Separate. That was earlier. That was before the last show had happened. That was a couple of years ago. But that's when I was starting to go, oh shit. Okay. Wow. And you know what? There's something about choreographed, synchronized movement that just makes a presentation so stellar. And it's really like Larry really nailed it on the head. And I'm not even as well. I'm so not well versed on this. But from what I saw, just watching as a casual observer, the 76 and before, just the fact that, yes, they were the attraction. They were the show. Their energy, that is punk rock energy. That is Gene. First of all, Gene looks like a praying mantis on stilts. He looks like he's going to eat you in 2 seconds. And then he does, like I said, he does that. I love this fucking thing. I don't know what that is, but I love it. Yeah. And just the fact, like they do the thing, I think it's during Deuce or it's during another where they shuffle from side to side, all 3 guys with the guitar. And I'll tell you, and I'm just going like, wow, like the way that they refined the movement along with the stage show. I mean, these guys really did master their craft, and it makes perfect sense to me why it's known in Kiss lore, even if you're a casual fan, Kiss really breaks with Alive, their live record, and it's a testament to everything that I'm saying right now. That's why they broke, because people finally understood that power that they have when the Alive record came out, as did I when I was watching this thing. But then I'm watching the footage from 76, the Destroyer tour, and that's when I saw, a lot of people, and this brings me to Ace Frehley. And before we talk about Ace Frehley, we got to talk about sticky things. And you know what else is sticky? Stickers. Riot Stickers. Riot Stickers is the sponsor of our channel. If you need stickers, Riot Stickers is the place for you to go. We're doing a special with them. You go to riotstickers.com/Frumess. That's FRUMESS. Link will be down in the description. You can get 200 die cut stickers for $69. Now, what is a die cut sticker? It is a sticker that is in any kind of shape that you want it to be. So whatever you design is for your sticker, they will shape it how you want it. And you know how they do that? With a computer guided scalpel. Isn't that a great band name? There needs to be a band called Computer Guided Scalpel, some like death metal band or something. It's going to happen one day. Someone's going to be Computer Guided Scalpel. So make sure you go over to Riot Stickers. You get the 200 die cut stickers for $69. Let's play the 60-second Less Than Jake theme song, and then we're going to talk about the magical power of Ace Frehley's guitar.
Posters and promo cards, there's nothing we can't print for you. From stage backdrops to bass drum heads, we can print on shirts, we can print on hats, we can print on pants. Cheap prices and high quality, quick turnaround times and free shipping. We also offer free artwork support, great customer service, and so much more. We are the bomb. RiotStickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb.
Riot Stickers is the bomb. Don't you forget it. Ace Frehley. Now, here's the thing about Ace Frehley that blows my mind. I'm watching that footage from 76, and suddenly I see Ace Frehley, and here's the incredible thing about him. It's the chops, it's the licks, it's the riffs. It's like he's flying off the rails, but at the same time sticking to a guided track. And he's like an untamed wild stallion. He is the secret weapon. They let him loose out of the barn, and suddenly the show takes it to a whole nother level. And by the way, the whole jumping up and down thing that Gene does, which I absolutely blows my mind. You have to think about the endurance trial it is to do a show live, and the fact that Gene Simmons is fucking doing this thing in high heels and platforms, no less, that he's doing this thing. He's got his bass and he's doing this insane movement. Of course he had to stop. Look what happened to Paul Stanley. Paul Stanley had both of his hips replaced, right? Because of the platforms. So ultimately that makes sense. But to go back, Ace Frehley, man, I mean, it's just like, I totally understand how he inspired so many and why his style is so revered amongst guitar virtuosos and whatnot. Discuss.
I'll start. I think that he's underrated, Jeff, in a lot of ways. And I know people are going to get on me with this comparison, but just follow me here for a sec. I think in a lot of ways, it's almost Eddie Van Halen-ish. And the reason why I say that is this. If you look at Eddie Van Halen, it is really about the licks. It's really about the songs. I think Ace takes it to another level because it's not just the licks. It's not just the songs. It's the image. It's the cool factor. It's everything. It's an entire package. I would never say that Ace Frehley is a better guitar player than Eddie Van Halen, but I think for a lot of fans in that era, and Larry, you'd probably be able to speak more about this than I would. I think Ace Frehley inspired more kids to pick up a guitar and play than an Eddie Van Halen did. And that's not taking anything away from Eddie Van Halen. He's the greatest. But I feel like Ace Frehley inspired more people to pick up the guitar and to play, and for bands to get together, get in their parents' garage and start playing.
I agree with you 100%. Dave. I'm 62, and I will tell you, I was never a musician. I played sports and stuff when I was younger. But one of the things I heard when I heard Kiss, I thought, this is great, but I think I can learn this. Ace Frehley on 100,000 Years can do more with one note on a riff than I have never been somebody who was attracted to. That doesn't mean anything to me. And God bless Eddie Van Halen, but to me, that was more the fan that liked. That inspired the guy who wanted to sit in his basement and stare at the neck and just work on speed and stuff like that. It didn't mean anything to me because I see that there's tons of people that can play like that, but can they perform? So Dave, I agree with you. I think people saw Ace and he would stagger around, and Jeff, that whole ending sequence with that down, 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 and Ace would slide in and he'd go on his knees and he's playing, and those two guys are coming down. And that was all. The guy who choreographed for that was a fellow by the name of Sean Delaney.
Oh, so like they had okay. So they did not. Which by the way does not take away from how wonderful it is in any way, shape, or form. But that was choreographed. They
had a lot of help. And
hey,
you mentioned I would be remiss if I didn't mention. I love Alice Cooper. I had a chance to open for Alice Cooper in I think 2001 or 2002. He had a key guy that Bob Ezrin was his hired gun for every band he worked with. Guy by the name of Dick Wagner.
Great.
Dick Wagner played on, and he played on Destroyer, trying to sound like Ace. Anything when Bob Ezrin produced Lou Reed and he needed to go out on tour, he had Dick Wagner put the band together. When Alice Cooper split off from the $1 Billion Babies, the other guys, Dick Wagner brought him in to put that band together for that Welcome to My Nightmare tour that Susie Quattro opened in '75. And then, so they had other people came in. I had a chance to talk to Bob Kulick years ago. Bob came in and he did, Bruce Kulick's brother. He came in and he did solo work, but they all tried to emulate Ace's sound. And I said, it was that hard? He goes, oh, yeah. He says, people don't realize, he's passed on since, but he said, people don't realize how innovative and how interesting his work is. It's not about playing 9 million notes. It's playing about notes that are meaningful to the song. Does that make sense?
He has a lot of emotion. He plays with, or at least in those early 70s or whatever, he's doing so. There's emotion and there's heart. There's heart in the playing. It's not technical, but there's heart. Yes. And that comes through to me. I'm not a musician at all, but someone just I watch music like I watch sports. Clearly, that's my thing. So it's like, I don't know. And then here's the next piece. And this is maybe a bit controversial. Now, I read an article on Ultimate Guitar about, I didn't know any of this about Tommy Thayer. I knew that he was a huge Kiss fan. I knew that, he did some recording with them and he opened for them, and slowly but surely he ingratiated his way into the circle, as any fucking fan would do who is enamored and by their idols or whatever, and was essentially instrumental in getting those guys, Ace and Peter, back into shape for the reunion tours. What are your ultimate? Now, there are some, I think the big thing, and this is from an outside perspective, from the pop culture perspective, that when you're a music fan and you don't know Kiss, but you know the things about Kiss, but you don't really pay too much attention. It's always the thing that I always hear is it's always no one can replace Ace. Tommy is an imposter wearing his makeup, yada, 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 whatever the thing is. Where do we fall with Tommy? Did Tommy, as it relates to the legacy, because Tommy gave them a whole new bit of longevity. what are your thoughts about all this stuff? I'm not really going there. Chris,
Well,
please.
one thing that I always remember from a particular Kiss concert, I believe the year was 2002. Kiss was co-headlining with Aerosmith at Madison Square Garden. They had if I remember right, they lost Peter, and then Peter came back, but they had lost Ace, and Tommy Thayer was, of course, in the makeup. And I'll never forget, at one point during the show, Tommy was doing a solo. I don't remember if it was just a solo or a solo during the song, but there were several people that yelled out, "Yeah, Ace!" And I will never forget that. I was like, wow, seriously? Like, you don't even know that this is an Ace. I don't want to comment too much on Tommy's playing. I don't know if I'm even qualified to compare, but what for me, Ace just brings a coolness factor to Kiss. And to me, he is essential for that coolness. And maybe, I don't mind them. I don't mind Kiss without Peter, maybe because Creatures is my favorite record. And I really enjoyed Eric Carr's playing. But man, to me, it's just, to Dave, to me, it's like the Fabulous Freebirds. You can have, obviously, you got to have Michael Hayes, but man, you got to have Terry Bam Bam Gordy. I don't care if you have Brad Armstrong or Jimmy Garvin, but you got to have Hayes and Gordy together. To me, you got to have Gene, Paul, and Ace.
Yeah, I understand that. And, I went on that, as I said earlier, the farewell tour with the original band in 2000. And it was, I got to be honest, like I went to both nights, as I said, it was a little underwhelming. Their performance was a little bit underwhelming. But when they got back together, I kind of felt betrayed. And when they brought in Tommy Thayer, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of done with this. Like, I went to the farewell tour. There's somebody else in Ace's makeup. I didn't think it was cool. And then, Peter was gone. Ace was gone. In comes Eric Singer, who I really enjoy. He was with Sabbath. He was with Alice Cooper. And then Tommy Thayer. But I got to admit, I went kicking and screaming. A friend of mine got a ticket to see the Rock the Nation tour in 2004. And I really didn't want to go, but I went. And I was blown away by how good Tommy was on the guitar and how great Eric was on the drums. I thought they fit in perfectly. And I couldn't believe how much better that show was in 2004 than the show I saw 4 years earlier in 2000 with the original band. So for a 4-year period, I rejected it. I wouldn't buy into it. But after hearing them from that point on, I was into it. And it didn't bother me at all, just because I thought they were actually a better band with the two new members. That's just my opinion. Larry, you think the same thing?
Yeah, I agree. And I guess for me, I'm going to show you something, you guys. In 78, I skipped my junior year of football to go work someplace so I could save up money because I heard Kiss Meets the Phantom was coming out on TV. And it was going to be the greatest thing in the world. I worked and I was stocking lumber and insulation, a shitty job. And all I could afford was a Quasar time machine. It had cassettes like this. This is a VHS cassette. It went obsolete almost a minute after I bought it. After I recorded that thing in 78, October 78, I wanted to smash the thing. I was so angry with them and disappointed with them. That was Gene's era of it was his early stages of over-promising and under-delivering. So, as much as I loved them, they broke my heart then. I was really angry with them. So by the time this all stuff with Tommy Thayer, again, I had seen them on Creatures of the Night, and they were a better band than I had seen in 79 on 3 out of the 4 shows. In total fairness. And I agree with Chris, Dave, Jeff. Eric Carr I love Peter's voice. Peter's voice on Nothing to Choose or Nothing to Lose and Black Diamond and backups and stuff in the 70s is dynamite. But, later on, he wants to sing his own songs. He wants to put in shitty songs that weren't. I saw them do, what is it? the one song from when they did each a song
The
and
solo,
Dynasty.
the solo records, yeah.
He did the cover song. Everybody was tossing and turning on night one. I didn't want to hear it. He sounded like shit. I don't want to hear that. You know, they gave up. So I guess I had already gone through this whole feeling of I got to deal with replacement people. And again, Creatures Night, they were a better band than what I had seen before. I boycotted them through their non-makeup years. I walked out on the Lick It Up show. I gave them one chance. I walked out.
Kidding.
I don't want to see him. I don't want to see they stopped being Kiss. They were a hair metal band. They suddenly went from being different, from being rebellious to being the worst thing you could possibly be, like everyone else. To me, that's what it felt like to me. So I couldn't support that. And Dave, I agree. When I saw them that time with that reunion tour, for me, it was an opportunity to take each of my kids and say, this is the band that meant a lot to me when I was a kid. So I got a chance. My kids are two are in their 30s, one's in their early 20s. I got to take each of my kids when they were little to each of these different tours. And for each of them, it was a joy for me because regardless of what I felt, they didn't have that reference point.
Yeah.
They saw this great spectacle. It was fun. It was fun for me to relive a little bit of my youth with them. So it was magical each time. But I agree that farewell tour in 2000, they were better with Tommy Thayer afterward. And I will tell you, with Bob Kulick, when I did talk to him, when he talked about doing tracks for Ace, when he was messed up, and Bob Ezrin was a taskmaster. He told me a story. He said Ace came by one day and he said, "Hey, Bob, how'd I sound today?" And Bob said to him, "Ace, never better, never better." Playing his leads for him. And Ace didn't care, apparently.
I gotta tell you, another before, I'm kind of going backwards in time as I talk when I'm talking about these things that I'm referencing I have something in my throat. From the final show to watching that Black Diamond. Now I'm going to go back another year or two where I had this morbid curiosity, because to me, again, and I really do like that we all have these varying degrees of perspective of Kiss. It makes the show far more interesting. And I love that I feel like such an outsider here, which makes it even better, to be honest with you. I had this, because to me, again, from the outside, 80s unmasked 80s Kiss, like could there be anything like why would I don't know, just like not like I just not something that I like. For me, Kiss is with the makeup and the Dr. Love and Shout It Out Loud and Love Gun and all these things. I don't need Rock and Roll All Night. What is this? Why even bother in the 80s? And like the idea of Kiss Army, like, oh my God, like people like talking about like these unmasked 80s records. So I finally dived in just to sort of see what it was all about. And I watched a live concert show from the Animalize tour in, I think, 86. Am I correct? 84. Okay. And I got to tell you, I was watching it on the channel, actually. We turned it on, and I'm watching, and I'm going, once again, I could not get over the energy and the finesse and the outpouring of theatricality. It was like they were working 10 times harder, because I'll tell you something, on that tour, at least, they had some scaffolding. They had some stairs. They were I remember they had their guitars on the side. They're climbing up the stairs. They're going down the stairs, but there's no more risers. I don't remember seeing any pyrotechnics or explosions. I don't think they did the sword on fire thing. They're just, hey, we're a band and we're playing on the stage. And for that reason, going back to the destroyer mentality and whatnot, they were giving 150%. I could not believe. And I'll tell you, who that was, the Fox guy, was the unmasked Fox, what's his name? Eric Carr, right? Not Eric Singer. Eric Carr has got, again, his chops on the drums. I mean, the guy is just, he's an animal. Yeah. He's an animal. He's an absolute animal. It's a good reason to call it Animalize. The point being is that, once again, like, basically my theme with Kiss is that I always get them wrong, and they always end up impressing me in some unforeseen, unexpected way where I feel I need to revel and discuss them and analyze what they are all about because I'm just blown away.
It's one thing we didn't bring up, and there's probably even a lot of younger fans that don't even realize that this was a thing. But when I first started falling in love with Kiss and they had the makeup on, the other thing that was great about it was the mystery, because you didn't know what they looked like under the makeup. When they came back, obviously everybody knew what they looked like because they had taken the makeup off.
It was a mystery.
But in the 70s, there were no pictures anywhere of what they look like. And there was always these like myths about that they were actually people from other bands and stuff. you didn't know who they were. So that
internet.
It's like the luchadors in pro wrestling with the mask, where they would never take, like, a luchador, true luchador will never take pictures in public without their mask on. They wear their mask in public constantly. It was the same thing with Kiss. You never knew what they looked like under that makeup. So that mystery was another reason why you fell in love with the band like you did back in the day.
Yes.
And you have no cell phones to take pictures of. There's no one who could snap a quick shot of you if you're coming in and out of the, the limousine. There's like, it really, the pre-internet age for information is a fact, and something that we discuss on the channel a lot. We always revel when we talk about Misfits stuff. One of the big things that always comes up, or just whatever, talking about punk rock, talking about zine culture, just like all these ways of these old school ways of getting information, going to a record store, chatting with friends. You meet people at the record store. You find you literally, the way the old school Facebook group or chat room or whatever is that you go down to the fucking record store and the same guy is looking for the same tape that you are, and you bump into each other and suddenly you're best friends because you're both talking about the same bands that nobody else gives a shit about in your local town. And then suddenly you guys are thick as thieves. And like, that's something that we've lost as a homogenized national society as a whole. We've lost that magic.
I think, and that's another thing where it's analogous to pro wrestling, is that bands and wrestling don't really have a chance to grow organically as they once did with the territories, right, Dave? You could go hone your character and your skills and your work. By the way, one of the life game changers for me in music was Kiss. Another one for me in pro wrestling was Randy Savage. But I absolutely loved him. He was to me, he's the MVP. People can talk about the GOAT, this and the GOAT that. To me, he's the MVP of the modern era, 1980 forward. But you're right, Jeff. I mean, you didn't have a chance to learn things, and like Dave said earlier, it was exciting. You heard somebody might have a picture of what they looked like, and then they were limited. I know one of the viewers put up something correcting me about Sean Delaney and said he helped them. Yes, they were doing some choreography, but if you look at 73 and 74, they're doing some weird shit. Gene is doing a thing like you're talking about with the wings before, and then this stuff. He's doing this weird like mime thing early on where he's miming and his arms are doing this and he's leaning back and forth doing like a weird clap thing. It looks totally ridiculous. It's bad. So Sean Delaney did help refine that stuff, and he did help them with the stuff of the going back and forth with during Strutter, during Deuce, and the ending of Black Diamond. But again, that excitement of maybe somebody had a picture of one of them. Yeah, so your viewer just said, I've seen that. If you go look at it, Gene looks ridiculous in this thing. He's doing like, again, it's like, what is that? The only mime I know is Marcel. He would do like this stuff. Gene's doing like this weird thing that he's clapping, and it was during I forget what song. It might have been through 100,000 Years. I don't know. It was while Paul Stanley's doing like a rap in the middle. But I miss when I knew less about them. And I have to say, we were probably a little critical of Ace and Peter's performances, but in a lot of ways, as I look back with Ace, in a lot of ways, he might have been the most valuable player of their golden era, because I still felt like he was probably the most dedicated, like he was the most rock and roll metal guy in the band.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as Gene got a little taste, I love Gene Simmons. There's my 78 Gibson Grabber that I played, although I had to modify. I have a gargoyle on the top of mine, so mine's an extra foot taller and a little heavier than that. But you know, I have to say, as soon as he got some exposure and he did the Marvel comics with the blood in the issue with Stan Lee, and they're on TV and they're making fun. Suddenly, Gene wants to tell everybody I was a teacher in 6th grade and I'm a very intelligent man, and he wants to get into all this stuff that, you know, and he starts
Todd Snyder, The Tomorrow Show.
Yeah. One of the things I recorded over, what I used to do is when I recorded that damn Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park movie in 78, what I did is I kept the intro and the live scenes from Magic Mountain and I filled it in with stuff. So like I have the Plasmatics on the Fridays show. Wow. Fridays used to have great.
That's cool.
Fridays. The Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder. I have an original broadcast. I just filled it in with all these other things because I was so angry at them from that fucking terrible movie.
Listen, we need to land the airplane. So we are in our final descent here. I just want to say, like, again, I'm just amazed at how amazing this is. The first time the four of us have come together and had a conversation, and just it's really great. I'm really, really glad that this happened. I want to take us out with a legacy question, which I think is appropriate. So, you know, Kiss have done, you know, when the other big controversy, I guess, from the one that I was really familiar with. I don't know what the other. I'm assuming that the controversies you're referring to are just about performance and whatnot, which is we've already discussed that. The controversy that I'm familiar with that really had a lot of people up in arms or just rolling their eyes or annoyed is how they chose to sort of the period, the punctuative period at the end of the Kiss sentence wasn't so much of a period as it was a semicolon, because they said, hey, surprise, we're going to be digital avatars. And here's what's funny. You know, I didn't even if I was a big Kiss fan, I just shrugged my shoulders because that's just such a such a Paul Gene thing to do. Of course they're going to do that. There was a time, and I promise I'm going to shut up right after this so you guys can go around. There was a time, and here's where I think the missed opportunity was, because like ultimately, you know, Kiss's legacy is a weird legacy. I'm glad they made it to year 50. I think had they stopped in 2020, that would have been just a weird, or 2019. That was weird. Come on, you're this pot committed. Make it to the 50th year, and that they did that, and that was the right way to do it. They started in New York and they ended in New York. They ended at Madison Square Garden. That was appropriate. So no matter what, that's kind of cinched off. They've already done they did a farewell tour with their original members. You know, Kiss is the type of band, the type of thing that transcends the people that originated it, kind of like the Beatles or even the Ramones. These are these concepts that are originally comprised of people, but then they ascend to a higher form. They become so ingrained in the pop culture. Whereas, and here's where I'm going with this, if you wanted to have a cartoon of the Ramones, four Ramones, Scooby-Doo style, running around back and forth, or if you wanted to have it, we did have it with the Beatles in the 60s. There were those 60s cartoons. If you wanted, and Kiss did do a Scooby-Doo, there was a crossover with Scooby-Doo. I know that. Yeah. And it's funny because when I saw that, I'm going, that is what ultimately Kiss should have become. That's their final legacy, is that you have transcended the actual human beings. You're no longer human, and now you are these concepts. And they're kind of choosing to do it as digital avatars, which is a little goofy. But on the flip side, I feel like there was a missed opportunity. Here's my missed opportunity. Promise I'm going to shut up. Here's the missed opportunity. The missed opportunity is Gene is no stranger to reality TV. They've talked about doing a Kiss 2.0 in the past. It would have been so on brand for Ace. It's not for Ace. I keep crossing the wires. For Paul and Gene to have a reality TV show, 4 seasons. We're going to find the 4 new members of Kiss, whether it sticks or not, whether it actually turns into something or not, they are the panel of judges, and they slowly find 4 new guys, and every time a guy wins the spot, he becomes a panelist. He becomes a judge in the next season. And at the end of the 4 seasons, you have the band goes out and does a tour as Kiss or as Kiss 2.0 or whatever you want to call it. And I feel like that would have been far more interesting than just being digital avatars, or maybe even just Scooby-Doo cartoons would have worked. All right, that's it. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to close with this thing. Discuss, please.
Who wants to go first?
I'm the least qualified, so I'll go. Dave, I'm sure you heard lots of rumors at the Garden. I know I did about all sorts of things because, they said, they're going to make this announcement. Everybody was predicting, which I thought wasn't a terrible idea, along those lines, Jeff, but that it was going to be a Kiss 2.0. I heard it was going to be Gene's son and Paul's son. In fact, Paul's son opened up, and he looked a little like Paul. He's got a good voice. I didn't really like his band, but, they just need better songs. But there was all sorts of rumors about everything under the sun. But, yeah, to be the digital avatar thing and to announce it immediately, I know Dave talked about it on his show, and I completely agreed. There was no period of just letting it rest. Let everybody, take in the fact that, wow, Kiss is over. And then maybe in a couple of weeks you announce something. Instead, they announced this like half-assed commercial, which looks fucking terrible. And it's like, okay, Kiss is going to live on as avatars. And I'm like, well, what does that even mean? And then, of course, again, I'm not as qualified as Larry and Dave, but I'm like, well, if you're making them avatars, why wouldn't you just make it Peter and Ace? Like, instead of still 2 guys dressed up like the original guys? I don't know. The whole thing just kind of turns me off. So me personally, I have zero interest in watching animated Kiss avatars or whatever they're going to do. It's. I mean, what do you even do with it? Are they going to put avatars on a big screen and take that on the road?
Yes.
Not humans. I have no interest in that. I'll go to a movie instead.
What they did at that final show is it wasn't just one screen. It was many screens throughout the arena. Oh. And they had Paul on one screen, Gene on another screen. It was odd. And Chris, you made the best point when it was over. Instead of people being like, wow, what a great show we just saw, or like, oh man, I can't believe it's over, and hugging it out with your friend and being like, having that remorseful period of like, man, I can't believe it's over. Everybody left Madison Square Garden saying like, what the hell did we just see? What was that? It was just mass confusion. Jeff, you said something that I never thought of, and it's so true. The Beatles did the same thing as Kiss. They did the cartoons. They did the crappy movies. But nobody takes them to task for that. When they think of the Beatles, they think of, oh my God, the originals, the founders. But they never talk about they were the original Kiss, the lunch boxes and the all the toys and the cartoon. The Beatles did the same thing, but nobody makes fun of the Beatles for that stuff, but they make fun of Kiss. The one thing, and then I'll give it to Larry because Larry deserves to go last because he's the man. Because he's the man. He is the man. I agree. He could also beat the shit out of all of us at the same time.
Yes, he could.
You're my bandmates. We could be the 4 Kiss avatars.
Yes.
And then after that, take our women. But that's beside the point. What I would have liked as a true Kiss fan, what I would have loved was, and this is what everybody's doing now, I would have loved to had Paul and Gene do a tour of just telling their story, telling the history of Kiss. Oh. Going to theaters around the country, just them sitting on a chair on stage and just telling the history of Kiss.
Just did that.
Yeah, and then taking questions from the audience. Like, that would have been wow. I mean, that would have sold out everywhere because the one thing is just getting the true story from the two men that have been there from day one. That would have been phenomenal. And then if they wanted to after that, they could have done a podcast. They could have, Gene and Paul could have done a podcast where every show was a different year of the band.
Yes.
And
Wow.
they break down every album and talk about the making of every album and every tour. That would have been absolutely, I would have been 1,000 times more interested in that than like this Avatar thing or whatever that they're doing.
And they could have done it from the comfort of their home. Like they literally,
Absolutely.
Because in their heads,
absolutely.
You know what the problem with Kiss 2.0 is? I mean, you got to pay 4 guys, and with the digital avatars, essentially, once it's all up and running, they can go out and being Kiss without having to leave their homes and don't have to pay nobody. Well, I mean, obviously they have to pay technicians. You know what I'm saying though.
Digital creator, but yeah.
It's they basically can keep doing it without keep doing it. And I don't know. Larry, please chime in here.
I think I'm writing down notes here because you guys are bringing up so many topics here and comments. I've enjoyed this tremendously because
Good.
You guys are all making really interesting comments, and this has been a lot of fun. I go. So when I hear all this stuff, one thing that keeps coming back, they kind of went the ABBA route, right? Because ABBA, didn't they do a thing with avatars last year? Good for them, because look, ABBA music from the 70s. That's some of the most well-produced pop songs. It's not all my taste, but there's half a dozen songs I think are absolutely great songs, and you can't argue with the production and the songwriting is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
But they had integrity and they walked away and they stayed away. Now they came back and they did something, 40 years, 50 some years after they ever did a show, and they did the Avatar. I get it with them. I get it. With Kiss, I think it would have been there was that comic strip character, the Phantom. They made a movie about 20 years ago. The Phantom was unique because he kept replacing. He was like there were generations of the character taking on the purple and black outfit in the jungle. It was like a 4th, 5th generation. They could have done that. It would have been so interesting, or they just could have let it run into the side. But I loved what Dave said about just doing a tour of talking, like when they did the Unmasked thing. The last great Kiss show I saw, because I did see this farewell thing in 2019 before the shutdown. I saw him. I thought it was great. It was a spectacle. It was great. I saw Gene Simmons' solo show at the Cleveland Agora about 8 years ago, and he played songs like he had a great backup band. I think they play in the Kiss Cruise with them. And I think he played like I'll See You Tonight from his solo album. He played some other songs he doesn't typically play. And I think he played Plaster Caster. I love Detroit Rock City. I don't want to hear that same set list for the 4 millionth time. I don't want to see Paul do the fake smashing of the guitar when I used to see him do it for real. I get it, but to see him, do the fake whiff 3 times, it's so it's so there's nothing spontaneous. Everybody knows it's coming. They did nothing to change except add a few different lights and stuff. So they're not Elvis. Dave, you're a big Alice Cooper fan. I know. And one of the things that keeps Alice Cooper so relevant is that I know as he does tours, he will go into his catalog and he'll pull out. I think he was doing Ballad of Dwight Fry on his last leg of his tour.
He always does on every tour. He'll always do like 1 or 2 songs that he's either never performed before or he hasn't done in 30 years. He always says there's like the 15 songs he has to do, but then he always leaves room in the set to do songs that he's maybe never done before, hasn't done in decades.
That's good. That's a good thing.
That is absolute, and that's to me I love Kiss. They had a big influence on me, but their music, I was listening to the other side, the B side of Hotter Than Hell the other day. The production's terrible. That always bothered me. But, I play punk rock. I don't really, I can get by bad production, but the thing that matters is the music ultimately. And ultimately now, all these years later, Alice Cooper continues to tour because he still sounds like Alice Cooper. He does what you just said, Dave. He introduces songs that say, wow, I haven't heard him do Under My Wheels in 30 years. He played that. He played Ballad of Dwight. He played Cold Ethel the other night. Wow. that's the thing I think that all the Kiss fans are hungering for. Play something different, for Christ's sake. Excuse me. Play something different. Don't play lick it up because you got to play it. And with something, we all know what you're going to play. Do something different. And they were doing that on their sound checks. They were doing Hotter Than Hell.
Right. They would. I saw
choose.
Yeah. There's YouTube videos of, like, I guess there's a certain level of course, there's a Kiss package for every fan, and one of them is that they'll come out there and Gene comes out in his bathrobe, and he and they take requests, and they do Plaster Caster and this, that, and the other, and whatnot. And I don't know. I just, that does happen. It just happens at the sound check, not in the show.
I think we'd all love to see Kiss in makeup do that, but I agree with what Chris said earlier with the I want to enjoy them as they were. The more I see them now, the more it diminishes when I saw them the first time. It remains the greatest live performance I've ever seen by any band. And that's my program from that night.
Wow.
Oh,
and
cool.
There's a, if something ever went down, you could see, that it looked like The Exorcist with the famous scene of the image of the statue and Reagan on the bed with shadow. That's what that middle section looks like. I mean, it was dark. It was gothic. It was, if you took a 10-year-old kid to that, they would have been scared shitless. They would have said, they would have wet their pants. They would have lost their minds. They would have been scarred for life. But wasn't that the beauty of it at that point? People said that about Alice Cooper when they saw the $1 billion. I mean, the guy was beheading babies and doing snakes and everything in 73. It was dangerous. So I missed that Kiss, but they're not Elvis Presley. Nobody is. I saw Elvis on one of those Philharmonic thing where they show his projection and they have the live accompaniment. It was phenomenal. But you're talking about Elvis Presley. You could probably do that with Patsy Cline. You could do that with somebody with rare talent. Rock band's not going to work that way.
Yeah,
actually,
Elvis has been gone since what, like 1975 or 76? I mean, Kiss just ended another.
Yeah, it just ended. Right.
World tour. Who's hot to buy a ticket to see cartoons on the TV screen?
Well, I'll tell you this. Here's the other interesting thing that came to my mind when I saw that Avatar thing, and it speaks to what we're talking about right now. About there's always going to be a market for live Kiss music, especially because people like to see the live spectacle. And now, and this is like, again, this extends to bands like, I'm about to drop something from the 90s that might sound really out of place in the Kiss show, but a band like Sublime. And the reason why I'm bringing up Sublime, obviously, is because that band does not exist, or that band stopped existing when the lead singer passed away. And you had tribute bands that came in and filled the hole. That there was a thirst to hear that music live. There was a market, and that market was filled by a band called Badfish. And they did so well that by the late aughts, they were making $1.5 million annually touring around playing Sublime's music. And now with Kiss gone, sure, there's going to be the avatars, but there's always going to be the fans, I imagine, that are going to accept it's just like, for me, I can't read on a Kindle. Okay. I just can't do it. When I read, when comic books went digital, there was no substitute for a trade paperback or just or just anything. I need the heft. I need the pages. If I'm going to see music live, I got to see the music live. And so I think we're now going to see the rise of Kiss tribute acts, and they already exist, and I'm sure you guys could tell me a million things about them. They're probably very detailed, and they copy. Oh, this is the exact stage costume from the Dynasty tour or whatever. And I think that their bread and butter has just popped in the toaster. You know what I mean? Like they're about to clean up because people are still going to want to see that music, and they're going to see it in a lot more of an intimate place. It's not going to be in some giant arena, obviously, although I'm sure some House of Blues will be happy to book a Kiss tribute at this point. It'll be in some, sweaty little rock club where you can get really close to a guy who's waving a sword around his head, trying to be Gene Simmons.
Yeah, look at that band, Almost Queen. They make tons of money.
Exactly. Listen,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say there's a few out there that I've seen. Some nights I don't sleep well, so I go down the rabbit hole of YouTube and I start watching something, and I watch his name. I start watching some of my old favorite Randy Savage stuff, Dave, and then I go backward in time and see what I can dig up, because there's always old wrestling tapes showing up, or boxing, whatever.
YouTube
football
rabbit hole.
Yeah. So I'm going down the rabbit hole of Kiss tribute bands, and it's interesting because there's one here from Northeast Ohio called Mr. Speed, and they have an absolute. It looks like the Dynasty stage. It looks like it.
Wow.
They wear all the colorful stuff. But there's one band I noticed, and the guy who plays Gene, they do a recreation of the live album of the Kiss Alive, the first one, and it looks like, honest to God, it looks. The guys doesn't look like Paul Stanley and the Ace Frehley guy. They don't, but they keep them in the back. But the way the smoke rolls out, they have the candelabra on Gene's side. The amps are identical. The sign looks identical. The guy who plays Gene, I think they're called Alive 75. I want to say, I don't know how recent it is, but to your point, I mean, they're playing songs like Cold Gin and Strutter that I haven't, and Come On and Love Me that I haven't seen them play live.
They're going to start getting booked, Lar. They're going to start getting booked a lot now.
That's literally what's going to happen.
Yeah, I hope I got the name right. If they're around still, I don't know.
I have to wrap this up, and I just want to say again, I'm so blown away by this panel. Like this really exceeded all of my expectations. I want to thank you all so much. I want to thank everybody for watching tonight, and this was just really, really great. I'll make sure to put links to everybody's stuff down in the description as well. And thank you for rocking and rolling with us all night and partying every day. Guys, stick around for 2 seconds. I'm just going to end this show real quick. We end the show here. We say peace and hair grease, and we will see you next time on